Okay, so um, we finished with understanding the law of diminishing marginal returns. That the more and more inputs that you put in, when there are some fixed inputs, then for more and more number of inputs would be required to get the same additional output. Both are, remember, marginal. So I'm not looking at total output and I'm not looking at total input. I'm saying that after reaching a certain point with an additional amount of, say, an additional 100 units of inputs, I would get lesser amount of output than I had gotten with the last 100 units. So for achieving the same amount of output, I would require more and more inputs as I go further and further in the process of production. And I reach a point finally where more and more inputs will not get me any output at all, or it will actually reduce my output because of overcrowding or whatever. So because the full capacity is already reached. Okay, so this is what we looked at as far as the law was concerned. Now, because this is a social science law, each social science law always has some exceptions. So what are the exceptions? Very simple, very commonsensical, very commonsensical. So the first one is that I gave you the example of pani puri. Now, instead of giving me the example, giving the example of pani puri, let me give you an example of laddu. Okay, so same thing. I'm hungry and I'm eating laddu. I love laddus and I'm eating more and more laddus and I am getting more and more satisfied. So for each additional laddu now, the additional satisfaction that I get is lesser and lesser. Fine. Now, let's see how the exception comes into picture. So say for example, I'm eating laddu and the laddus that were made were of this size, small laddus. Okay. So I have one laddu and I'm very hungry. So I'll have another laddu and I'll get actually almost equal amount of satisfaction out of it yet. Okay. But, and then the third and fourth laddu and the story continues. But if the first laddu that comes is the laddu which you distribute in, say, Ganesh Ji ka Prasad during Ganesh festival. But the laddu, the next laddu that you get is this huge laddu that you get in Tirupati. So now, the satisfaction that I will get from the second laddu, which is the Tirupati laddu, is actually going to be far more from the satisfaction that I got from the first laddu. So size matters. You can't change the size and say that with every additional input, the output is going to be lesser and lesser. No, the inputs have to be of the same size. If they are not of the same size, the satisfaction, of course, is going to change. So if the laddus, if the size of the input changes, then of course the output will change accordingly. And you can't say that the law of diminishing marginal returns applies. Okay, so the first exception is size. Second exception. Second exception is same example. The Ganesh Ji ka laddu, which is distributed especially as prasad. So prasad to log dete hain. They are not going to be spending so much in distributing like 5 kg of laddus, which are like of the topmost quality. Or if you are staying in a hostel, canteen mein banaye gaye laddu versus the laddus which are available with the best halwai in the city. There is going to be a qualitative difference. Yes. So the first laddu that I have is that laddu which is like the canteen wala laddu. But then the second laddu that I have is the laddu which is made by the best halwai in the city. Of course, the satisfaction is going to be more, of course. So the law of diminishing marginal returns does not apply if you change the size. The law of diminishing marginal returns also does not apply if you change the quality. And the law of diminishing marginal returns does not apply if you change the capacity of the inputs which were fixed. So by some miracle, from being Alka, I become Ganeshji. And then I would be able to eat so many laddus because Ganeshji has infinite capacity for anything. And when you have infinite capacity for anything, of course, law of diminishing marginal returns does not apply. For the law of diminishing marginal returns to apply, you have to have some inputs fixed. And the moment you say that I am expanding the capacity of these fixed inputs, the law will not apply, or it will start applying once again after you are reaching the capacity of that input. So these three are very important exceptions to law of diminishing marginal returns. And remember these, okay? Size, quality, and the capacity of the fixed inputs, okay? You change any of this and the law will not apply. So these are the exceptions to the law of marginal returns. Now, we need to deliberate on one question, that does the law of diminishing marginal returns apply to money? What I'm trying to say is that as I earn more and more money, would I get tired and would not get satisfaction by getting more and more money? Or would I just need more and more and more? I mean, as far as food was concerned, we said that after a point of time, if you give me more food, there would be negative returns to scale. If you give me more money, would there ever be such a stage arriving? Well, negative returns to scale, I don't think would apply so easily to money, but diminishing marginal returns, you would say, come on. I mean, everyone wants more and more money. Everyone wants more and more things to buy. So the law of diminishing marginal returns cannot apply as far as money is concerned. But trust me, it applies. And how does it apply? The way it applies is something like this, that think of a 500 rupees note. When you are given a 500 rupees note as a student, wouldn't it matter quite a bit for you? If you lose 500 rupees, you're going to feel very sad because you could have bought so many things with that 500 rupees. In a student's life, 500 rupees matter a lot. When you become a professional like me, and when you are earning quite a bit because you have been, you are a senior professional, I'm a senior professional, right? So when you become a senior professional, and if somebody asks you for donation, you give 500 rupees saying that this is the minimum donation that I can give. You know, the value of 500 changes. For me, 500 is not what 500 is for a student. So for me, it is like, I can give it, very easily without thinking much. I can easily spend it away. I mean, not even giving it the second thought. Now think of a person who is like a Tata or an Ambani. Ambani is, as you know, amongst the, I mean, his rank keeps going up and down, but amongst the 10 richest persons of the world, one of them is Mukesh Ambani. So for Ambani, do you think 500 rupees would matter? I mean, for him to get the satisfaction that you get when you get a prize of say 5,000 rupees is immense. The satisfaction that I would get out of receiving 5,000 rupees as some kind of an award For me it is like परचूरन, छुट्टा, you know, कि हाँ ठीक है, मतलब दे दिया उसने, it was for traveling expenses and all, nothing much. So 5,000 already has reduced its value. But still, I would be happy that they met my expenses because I had spent the money for this and that. So I'm happy that they gave me 5,000 rupees. And if for one lecture they are giving me 5,000 rupees, I'll definitely go, because that is a good, very good price to get for giving a lecture. Okay. So 5,000 rupees still matter a lot as far as Alka Parikh is concerned. If you want to make Mukesh Ambani as happy as I am to receive 5,000 rupees, you will have to give him at least 5 crores, at least. So the utility of that additional amount decreases as your own income increases. When the income increases, every additional money that you get is going to give you lesser and lesser and lesser satisfaction. Okay. So law of diminishing marginal returns applies even if it is money. Because to get the same amount of satisfaction, you will have to give me far more money. And that is how the entire law applies. So with that, we finish today's lecture. And from tomorrow onwards, we are going to be dealing with demand and supply, the foundations. The first foundation was the law of diminishing marginal returns. Economics stands on these three principles, you know, law of demand, law of supply, law of diminishing marginal returns. The entire structure of economics is based on these three laws. So we will be learning those two laws from the next lecture onwards. Okay, bye. Have a nice day.